Welcome back to Undercurrent. I am Mehtap Arslan. In the last episode, we explored a question that sits underneath many transformation efforts. Why don't people change even they understand the change? Today, I want to explore another assumption I hear all the time in transformation. And it sounds something like this: if you train people, they will adopt the new ways of working. Seems reasonable, doesn't it? After all, if people know what to do, surely they will do it. But let me ask you something. Have you ever attended a training program that made complete sense and then found yourself doing exactly what you were doing before a few weeks later? I know, I have. And that's not because the training was bad. It's because awareness and capability are not the same thing. Now, before anyone thinks I am about to criticize training, let me clarify something. I started my career in learning and development more than 25 years ago. I've designed training programs, facilitated workshops, built learning frameworks, supported leadership development initiatives, and throughout my career, I have remained a strong believer in learning. Training matters, education matters, capability building matters enormously. But over the years, I've also realized something important. Information alone doesn't automatically create behavioral change. And transformation depends on behavioral change. Because when organizations talk about new ways of working, they're usually asking people to do much more than learn a new process. They're asking people to think differently, make decisions differently, collaborate differently, lead differently, prioritize differently. Sometimes they're even asking people to redefine what success looks like. And underneath all of that, they're often asking people to feel differently too, to become comfortable with uncertainty, to let go of familiar ways of working, to trust new systems, to experiment. That's a much bigger change than most training programs are designed to address. Because nobody becomes confident simply because information was delivered. Think about almost any meaningful skill in life, like swimming, public speaking, leadership, difficult conversations. Nobody becomes comfortable because someone explained the theory. At some point, they have to do the thing. And usually, they don't do it perfectly. They feel uncertain, sometimes incompetent, sometimes embarrassed. Sometimes they fail. And that's where capability starts forming. Not when information is delivered, when experience begins. Because capability develops through a cycle. You try, reflect, adjust, try again, over and over, and that sounds obvious. Yet, many organizations design information as if awareness should be enough. We train people on Monday and expect new behaviors by Friday, and then wonder why adoption is slow. But capability doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows through repetition, through reinforcement, through coaching, through feedback, through experience, and perhaps most importantly, through confidence. I've seen this repeatedly during HR transformations, operating model changes, digital implementations, and post mergers and acquisitions integrations. Teams attend excellent training. They leave energized. They understand the new process. They can explain it back perfectly. But a few weeks later, under pressure, many return to the old way. Managers return to the old decision-making habits. Teams return to silos. Employees return to manual workarounds. Leaders return to urgency and escalation. Not because they forgot, not because they disagreed, not because they resisted, because they haven't yet built enough confidence operating differently. And I think that distinction matters. People often don't revert back because they lack knowledge. They revert because they lack confidence. And here is something else I've noticed. Capability isn't built by the learner alone. It's built by the environment around them. People are constantly watching. What behavior is actually rewarded here? What mistakes are tolerated? Who gets promoted? Who gets criticized? Who still succeeds using the old methods? Because humans learn socially, far more than organizations often. If leaders continue behaving the old way, people notice. If managers reward old behaviors, people notice. If deadlines become more important than learning, people notice. And eventually, people make a perfectly rational decision. Maybe this change isn't really that important after all. And honestly, this isn't just happening inside organizations. It's happening in our own lives too. Think about how many times you have learned something valuable about yourself. Maybe you have learned healthier communication habits, better emotional boundaries, better ways to manage stress, better ways to respond during conflict. In the moment, the insight feels completely clear. You think, yes, that's exactly what I should do. But then life happens, stress happens, fatigue happens, pressure happens, and suddenly you're reacting exactly the way you have always reacted. Why? Because under pressure, humans don't default to aspirational behavior. We default to practiced behavior. And organizations are no different. Which is why I think one of the most misunderstood questions in transformation is not, did we train people? The more important question is, did we create the conditions where people could safely practice new behaviors long enough for those behaviors to become capability? Because capability isn't created the moment information is delivered. Capability develops when people begin successfully operating differently under real conditions. That takes reinforcement. It takes leadership consistency. It takes patience. And perhaps most importantly, it takes an environment where people feel safe enough to be beginners again. Because every transformation asks people to become beginners at something. And very few organizations make that easy. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Undercurrent. And next time, we will explore another hidden dynamic underneath transformation. Why managers often become the emotional shock absorbers of change, and why organizations frequently underestimate the cost.